My boss said, "Let's treat me like a maid," and I lost control. There are moments in life you don't plan for. Moments that catch you off guard in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday. And before you know it, something inside you just breaks open. Not in a bad way. More like the way an old window finally gives in a warm spring breeze. And suddenly the whole room is full of fresh air. That's the only way I know how to describe the day my boss got down on her hands and knees and cleaned the break room floor, and I stood there in the doorway, watching her, completely unable to move. Her name was Caroline Whitfield. She'd been the office manager at Hargrove & Sons Property Management in Clarksville, Tennessee, for going on 14 years when I came aboard as a file clerk at 52 years old. Freshly divorced and fairly certain my best days were well behind me. Caroline was younger than me by a good 10 years, late 30s, sharp as a tack. The kind of woman who wore reading glasses on a chain around her neck and knew exactly where every single document in that building was filed. She had dark hair she kept in a ponytail most days, and she wore these square-framed glasses that made her look, I always thought, like somebody who had interesting opinions about things. She wasn't the easiest boss I'd ever had. She was particular. She expected things done right the first time. But she was also the kind of person who said please and thank you, who remembered your kids' names, and who once stayed 2 hours past closing time to help me fix a filing error that was 100% my mistake. She never made me feel small about it. I should tell you a little about me, so you understand what I mean when I say that day changed me. My name is Earl Dempsey. I grew up in a small town in western Kentucky, the third of 5 kids. Son of a man who drove a coal truck and a mother who cleaned other people's houses for 30 years without a single complaint. I watched my mother walk through those doors before dawn and come home after dark. And I never once heard her say that work was beneath her. She used to tell us kids, "Earl, there is no shame in honest labor. The shame is in thinking you're too good for it." I carried those words my whole life, through 2 decades at a machine shop, through raising 2 daughters mostly on my own after my first wife passed, through a second marriage that lasted 12 years before it ran out of road. I carried those words when I found myself sitting across a desk at 52, interviewing for a job that most folks my age would have considered a step backward. Caroline hired me on a Wednesday. By Friday, I already knew I'd gotten lucky. Now the break room at Hargrove & Sons was a decent enough space, microwave, coffee maker, a little round table with 4 chairs. But it had seen better days. The linoleum floor had a stubborn grease stain near the corner that the cleaning crew kept mopping over without ever quite getting out. It had been there so long that most of us just stopped seeing it. You know how that goes. Something's been a certain way long enough, and it just becomes part of the scenery. One morning in late October, I came in early. It was a gray kind of morning. The sky, that flat pewter color you get in Tennessee before winter really settles in. I'd stopped at the diner on my way in and brought back a cup of coffee and a piece of peach pie. Because some days you just need to treat yourself to something small and good. I pushed open the break room door and stopped dead in my tracks. There was Caroline, in her work clothes, dark slacks, a white blouse, down on her hands and knees on that linoleum floor, scrubbing at that old grease stain with a bristle, brush and a can of industrial cleaner. She had a stack of paper, towels beside her, and a look on her face, like she was solving a math problem, focused, quiet, completely absorbed in what she was doing. I must have stood there a full 10 seconds before she looked up and saw me. "Oh, Earl." She sat back on her heels and pushed her glasses up. "I didn't hear you come in." "Caroline," I said, "what on earth are you doing?" She looked down at the floor like the answer was right there. Cleaning this stain. It's been bothering me since August. She paused. Also, the cleaning service called yesterday and said they're short-handed this week. I figured someone ought to handle it. I set my coffee and my pie on the table. I pulled off my coat, and without saying another word, I walked to the supply closet, got the mop bucket, filled it up, and got to work beside her. She looked at me for a second, like she was going to tell me not to bother. I gave her a look right back that said, "Don't you dare." We worked in quiet for a while. That comfortable kind of quiet that only comes between people who don't need to fill every moment with noise. After a bit, she said, "You know, most people would have just walked past and pretended not to see me." "My mama cleaned houses," I said. "I wouldn't disrespect that." She went still for a moment. Then she said, soft and careful, "I cleaned houses too. 2 summers in college. People used to talk right through me like I wasn't there." She scrubbed at the stain a little harder. "I swore when I got into a position to treat people decently I would." Something moved in my chest. One of those feelings you don't have a clean name for. Part recognition, part gratitude, part something that stings just a little at the corners. I said, "You've done that, Caroline. Every day I've worked here, you've done that." She didn't answer right away. She just kept working. But after a minute she nodded just once. The way people do when they've needed to hear something for a long time and they're almost afraid to let themselves take it in. "We got that stain out, by the way. It took nearly 40 minutes and the better part of a can of cleaner. But we got it." When we finally stood up, Caroline pulled off her rubber gloves and looked at the floor with genuine satisfaction. "There," she said. "That's better." I picked up my coffee. It had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. "You want half of this peach pie?" I asked her. "I got it from Maid's diner. It's real good." She smiled then, not the professional smile she wore in meetings or when she was managing a difficult client on the phone, the real one, the one that reached her eyes and made her look just for a moment, like she was 20 years old and none of the hard parts had happened yet. "I would love a piece of peach pie," she said. So we sat at that little round table in the break room, in the grey October morning light, with our cold coffee and that piece of pie split between us on a paper napkin, and we talked, really talked, the way people don't do nearly enough. She told me about growing up with a single mother in Memphis who worked doubles at the hospital. I told her about my mama and the coal truck, and the house we grew up in where you could see daylight through the kitchen, floor in winter. We talked about our kids. She had a boy in middle school who was obsessed with space and about the strange, unexpected ways life reroutes you when you're not paying attention. "I didn't plan any of this," she said at one point, gesturing vaguely at the office around us. "I thought I was going to be a school teacher. 3rd grade. I had it all planned out. I thought I was going to play shortstop for the Cincinnati Reds," I said. She laughed, a good laugh, the kind that fills a room. "Well," she said when she settled back down, "I reckon this isn't so bad." "No, ma'am," I agreed. "It isn't bad at all." Other folks started filtering in around 7:30. Donna from accounts payable, Terry from the front desk, a couple of the younger agents. They came in, poured their coffee, noticed the floor, though none of them knew why it suddenly looked different, and went about their morning. Caroline stood up, smoothed her blouse, and slid right back into being the calm, organized, put-together woman who ran that office like a well-tuned engine. But something was different between us after that. Not dramatically different. No big announcement, no grand gesture. Just that quiet shift that happens sometimes between two people who have seen each other a little more clearly than usual, the way you might wave to a neighbor you've lived next to for years, and one day actually stop and talk, and realize they are genuinely interesting, and you've been wasting a perfectly good friendship by just nodding over the fence. I worked at Hargrove & Sons for 6 more years. Caroline and I had coffee together most mornings after that. I watched her son grow taller every year from the school photos she kept on her desk. She listened when my younger daughter went through her divorce, and she never once offered advice I didn't ask for, just listened, and occasionally said, "That's hard, Earl, that's just hard," which was usually exactly the right thing. She still managed that office with precision and high expectations. She still caught my mistakes before they became problems. But I never forgot that October morning. The way she looked, on her hands and knees on the floor, doing a job no one assigned her, because someone had to do it and she was there. That's a kind of leadership you can't teach in a classroom. You either have it or you don't. And it doesn't come from a title. It comes from remembering where you started and refusing to forget it. My mama would have liked Caroline Whitfield. I think she would have recognized something in her. That same understanding that the measure of a person isn't what they do when everyone's watching. It's what they do on a gray Tuesday morning when nobody is. I'm in my early 60s now. Retired from Hargrove & Sons 2 years back. I still stop at May's Diner for coffee sometimes. Still get the peach pie when it's in season. And every now and then, when I'm mopping my kitchen floor or cleaning up after myself in some small, ordinary way, I think about that morning. About a woman on her knees scrubbing a floor she didn't have to scrub. About how the simplest things sometimes are the ones that stay with you longest. About how losing control, really losing it, the walls coming down, the guard going quiet, isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it just means something got through. And that, folks, is the story of the morning I lost control in the best possible way. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you of someone you've known, or a kindness you've either given or received, I hope you'll take a moment to share it with someone who might need it today. There are people in our lives right now doing quiet, unglamorous, important work, and sometimes all they need to know is that somebody sees them. If you're new here, welcome. We tell stories like this every week, stories about real people, real moments, and the kind of everyday human dignity that doesn't always make the headlines, but matters more than most things that do. Hit that subscribe button if you'd like to come back. Leave a comment below and tell me about someone in your life who taught you something about what real leadership looks like. I read every single one. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. Take good care of yourselves and each other. We'll talk again real soon.